Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome, everybody, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I'm so excited about today's show, which is kind of a different format. I connected with somebody who does similar things as me. He's a therapist, but he works with people who struggle with food and weight, disordered eating, and emotional eating. And so he has a podcast that he just started. And so we had a little conversation with, together, and that same conversation is going to go on his show and it's going to go on my show. So you're getting just a very informal and friendly conversation about, his story and my story and different ways that we approach this issue with our clients. And I think you'll really enjoy it. Plus he's from Belgium and he has a beautiful, yummy accent. So that's different from hearing my way of speaking and my usual guests. So I think you'll really enjoy it. It's very sweet, very, very thought-provoking. So yeah. And then I just want to let you know that we are starting the Quit Sugar Challenge very soon. It's coming up. So if you haven't gotten your ticket, please join at quitsugarchallenge.com, quitsugarchallenge.com. And if you're hearing this, later after it's ended, sign up to be on the wait list for when we do it again. Can't promise when that's going to be, but certainly you make sure you get notified. So and lastly, so much happens in the Secret Sauce group. So be sure that you're part of the Secret Sauce group on Facebook. Go to Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. And that's where we continue the conversation about many important issues around overcoming emotional eating, loving our bodies, loving our food, and loving our lives. So thanks for that. And on with the show. Okay, well, this is really fun to be with you here, Philippe. So hello.
Hello, it's nice to see you too, Tricia.
Yeah, this is great. We're across the pond from each other, or across the US too, on my part. So, let's start. You want to start? I know your audience knows your story, but mine doesn't. So will you go ahead and share some of your story and journey with weight?
Yeah. So about 25 years ago, I was a restaurateur. In fact, I had restaurants in Belgium. And,
okay.
I love food, and with years I've put on a lot of weight, and I was in therapy. Not for that. I was in therapy for other reasons, and I didn't want to do a diet. I was trying to understand, why do I eat and drink, but it was mostly eating that much. What's pushing me towards all these extra weight? And so it's something that I started working on with during my therapy. And I must say, my therapist, although it was a good therapist, I really liked her, could help, but to a certain extent. So I thought, well, that's really interesting. I really want to understand why I can't stop eating when I'm going to a restaurant or even at home. Why do I eat that much? What's pushing me to such big quantities? And so I did my own research, and I was also being trained. I wanted to become a therapist, so I was being trained to be a therapist. And and with years, I understood myself. I got more intimate with myself, and I could understand better what was going on, and I stopped overeating. I just stopped overeating. It was frustrating because there were ups and downs, and then one day there was no more downs, I must say. But it was a bit bumpy, but it was such a nice feeling. It's like the beast was gone. I mean, the beast is not a nice way to say it. Maybe it's my French.
Oh, I think people people listening on my end will get the beast, the beast
it's
analogy.
Like the beast, okay. So that's. So everybody was asking me, well, what kind of diet have you done? And I said, well, I didn't do any diet. I'm just eating less. In fact, I was eating quite healthily. So it wasn't, it was probably too much sugar, too much fat, probably, but it was more about the quantities. So I was telling them, no, I just eat much less. I don't starve myself. I know I don't eat when I'm not hungry, and I stop eating if I'm hungry. I stop eating when I'm not hungry anymore. And so I started specializing as a therapist, and I became a therapist. I ended my business as a restaurateur, and I started being a therapist specialized in weight issues, and then more more eating disorders at large as well. And I find it fascinating every time I see a client. In fact, every time I see a new client, I wonder what is going to be his or her story, because we could think it's like we all have the same kind of patterns, but it's really interesting to see how at some point in our life something has created this change, or this created this thing where we have changed our eating habits, and sometimes when we're very young, sometimes later on in our life. So I'm still passionate about it. So that's a good thing. I never get tired of it.
That's
How about you? What has been your journey?
I was an emotional eater, I think, from the get-go. I mean, I just remember loving food. I just love to eat, and I love to cook. I love to serve food to other people and go out to restaurants. So I was a big foodie. Which wouldn't have been bad, but I gained weight really easily. So even as a kid and into my adulthood, I was overweight, and I was 50 pounds overweight, which I'm not sure what that is for kilos, but
I have an idea.
It's too much anyway. So definitely too much for my little body. So I hated being overweight. I just hated it. And I hated, the roll of fat on my tummy that I'd want to cut off, because it was fat. And I'd want to get some disease where I'd automatically lose weight, so I had a lot of desperate thoughts about my weight because I felt so, I certainly tried many diets. It's the first go-to seemingly for somebody who struggles with weight, but I'd lose weight and then gain it back. I mean, I could lose it for a time. I mean, you can get really excited and gung-ho to diet and get into it, but after a couple of weeks, it gets hard. And then you're like, I just want food. Like I want my favorite foods, So that's what happened for me. And I had like 5 different sizes of pants in my closet. And I can look back at photos of myself at different points in my life. I know exactly how I felt about my body in every single photo. It's how I lived. I lived with that obsession with my weight. So what happened for me is really after beating my head against the wall with diets and exercise programs, and even, I tried a 12-step program. I tried therapy. I went to an eating disorders therapist for a year. So for me, I feel like I was a hopeless case. Like I just didn't take for me, but I did get help from a spiritual healer, somebody who had been obese and was really going at it from the deeper level, similar to you and me. But at the time I was always missing. I was missing something. So it was really.
What do you mean by that? Sorry, by what? I'm not sure. I want to make sure I understand. What do you mean by I was missing something?
I did diets. I did a lot of different things, and even the therapy was going deeper. But the reason why it didn't really connect with me is because I was in my head too much. I was in my head and I hadn't dropped into my heart. And so I could talk a good game. Like I could talk about, I had sexual abuse in my past. So I could talk about sexual abuse, but it was from an intellectual place. So I wasn't unlocking the pain in my heart. So that was really a difference for me, is this person who helped me just made me feel safe enough to kind of let the floodgates open. And I was holding on to so much pain that I just started releasing and letting that pain out. And I had to do a lot of writing and a lot of things that kind of helped process experiences from my past. It's never just one. There's lots of things that I stuffed so many things that I just didn't, there was a big mishmash inside of me that I had to sort out. But that was really the difference, is feeling safe enough to let the pain out of my heart. But also the self-care. I learned ways to take care of myself instead of soothing myself with food. And that made all the difference.
And do you sometimes see or feel that you slip back into something like that? Does it happen sometimes? Or is it like, no, I'm safe. This is something I'm really
Yeah, well, I think I mean, certainly it's never a perfect ride, right? So
Yeah.
definitely I had moments where I would fall back, not so much now because it's been so many years. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this
Mm.
work for 30 years now, but definitely in my first decade of healing, there'll be times when I didn't, I didn't process my emotions, to the extent where they didn't feel like they were overwhelming,
Mhm.
and so there were times, of course, when I would overeat. But nowadays, by the grace of God, it's,
Mhm.
I'm super on top of my self-care, and I put that
That's great. Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's made a huge difference. And also, the pain of slipping back and the memory of, I mean, I was a binge eater. Like I could eat a lot of food in a sitting and just feel terrible and then go down this rabbit hole of like a couple weeks of darkness,
Mm. Mm.
so really food addiction territory. And the pain of it was so great that that's what motivates my work now with other emotional eaters, is just, I don't ever want to go back to that pain. And I know how painful it can be for
And
people.
shameful as well. The pain and the
Oh,
shame. I mean,
yes.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
like,
The shame
yeah.
and the
And it
secretiveness, right?
exactly.
The
Yeah.
like, we don't ever binge in front of other people.
Like we
It's
know,
like,
for some people, it's like they're having an affair.
yes,
And sometimes their partner don't, even if, when you're with someone, you have a partner or a husband or wife, it's like you're having an affair with food, and
yes,
it's destroying your
absolutely.
life. It can be really, really painful.
No question. And it's not just when you're eating, it's like I had so many thoughts about, like, my mind was so preoccupied with food, I couldn't be present with the people I was with or loved,
Mhm. No,
you
maybe
know?
it's interesting that you say that, because sometimes maybe we use that so that because it's easier than being present with some people. Maybe
So
we find it difficult to
true.
be present to some people.
So true. And we were talking about intimacy before we started recording. And I
Mhm.
think that's absolutely true. Like using food as our lover because it doesn't talk back. It doesn't, it's not awkward. Like we know exactly how it's gonna act every time. It's
It
gonna
won't betray us. We know
no,
what it's going to be like.
no, we'll get our fix. Like it'll be super accommodating, so it's
Yeah.
just we don't think about the aftermath, and it seems like a really happy relationship, and then it actually turns abusive because we hurt
It is.
ourselves
Yeah.
with it.
No, you're right. It is abusive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I had intimacy issues, and I think the food was my lover for sure.
Hmm. And sometimes in talking about your lover, some people have they've been in a relationship for a while, and somehow they use their extra weight, the extra kilos or pounds in your case, to somehow manage a distance with their partner, because they don't want this physical intimacy. So now I'm talking more specifically about the physical intimacy. It's a way somehow to tell their partner. I mean, they don't do it. They don't realize they're doing it. They're doing it for that reason. It's not conscious,
Yes,
but somehow it's to manage the distance, the physical distance with their partner, or their anger
totally.
towards their partner. It's like, you're not good to me. I don't care. I'm going to get fat. I mean, they don't say that to
Of
themselves like
course,
in
it's
very, yeah,
subconscious, but
it's
I think
subconscious. Yeah.
that's real for sure.
No, no, no. Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
That's
When there's problems and you don't address them head on, you have these passive aggressive ways of doing it. And I think that's so true, using your body for that in that way. I mean, I know for myself, I mean, it was just sort of a function of overeating that I just didn't want to be touched. I felt so gross. I didn't
mm,
even want to shower because sometimes I didn't want to feel my body
yeah.
and how much weight I'd gained. I didn't want to face it.
Hmm.
So the intimacy was just, I mean, that was out the window for sure. I
No,
just
no. Yeah,
didn't,
I get that.
I
Yeah,
couldn't stand it.
yeah.
So yeah, there's so many consequences to this problem that
Hmm.
people don't realize. Like we think, oh, we can't fit into our pants and that sucks. We feel a little embarrassed in public or whatever, but there's so many places that it seeps into, right? Like so many places in our lives that are affected by feeling bad about our bodies.
It's there from the minute we wake up until the minute we fall asleep. It's there
Yeah.
all day long. And if so we have to go to the toilet in the middle of the night, even then we will think, oh, it's there all the time. It's like nonstop. It's so
Yeah.
tiring. It's taking so much room in someone's life. It's no, I know it's massive.
Yeah,
And it has
absolutely.
nothing to do with the love of food and or with greed. It's not about being greedy and loving food, because no, I think I even love food, more now than I did before.
Yeah.
Because you can really love food. For
You
example, I
can
love
appreciate it more, right?
yeah, of course, and you don't
Yeah.
need to overeat, because most of the time when you're not hungry anymore, you don't even appreciate it that much. In fact, if you
Oh,
really
no.
no, you don't. You're just stuffing
No.
yourself. And, yeah.
Totally. Totally. That was the hardest part, is eating all these foods. I had fantasized about being so yummy, but when I'm in that terrible self-destructive mode of eating, I had nothing, I couldn't taste anything.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, exactly.
So you were a restaurateur. Are you still like really into cooking and stuff?
I cook quite often. Yeah, but I'm not crazy about it. Not like some of my friends who really send me recipes and stuff like that. I cook. In fact, I more and more enjoy simple recipes and the taste of food. Let's say if I do some vegetables, I really like tasting each vegetable. So it's not like minimalist cooking, because there is something maybe a bit not very exciting about that. But I think food in general takes too much room in our societies. Like everybody's talking about recipes, about restaurants, and why not? It's not. I mean, okay, it's fun maybe, but somehow for me, more and more food is what I need. Is my energy for, in order to have a good day at work, or with my friends, or with my kids. I'm not that crazy anymore about food, I must say. I mean, I
Yeah.
enjoy it. If I eat some feta, I had some feta earlier with a good tomato. If it's a good tomato with a good feta and a good olive oil, it's okay. That's perfect for me, And I mean, sometimes I like more elaborate things. And do you cook a lot, or?
I actually don't cook these days. I remember I was so into cooking and baking when I
Yeah.
was in my eating days. And then when I started to realize how much of an emotional eater I was, and I started on my recovery path, I thought, well, this is not helpful to be baking. I'm at the scene of the crime. So I stopped, really being that in. I mean, so much of my cooking and baking was tasting, like I was really into tasting and eating what I made. And when I stopped doing that, I'm like, I wasn't that interested. So I don't cook a lot, although I have a boyfriend, as I mentioned, who's from the Netherlands, and he's great at cooking. So we actually cook a lot now.
That's nice. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it. It's like I'm starting to really have fun with it and realize how easy it is. I mean, I don't know if I'd be motivated to do it on my own, but doing it with somebody is
it's
so
different. It's nice. You're sharing something. Yeah.
Yeah, you put a little music on, and you kind of divvy up the job and who's doing what. I'm kind of like the sous chef, so I do I do the chopping, and cutting and deveining and stuff like that, and he kind of throws it together, and he knows all the spices to use. So it's a good division of labor, but it's really, and then to enjoy a meal at the dinner table is new for me too, because normally if I'm dating somebody and we go out to dinner, it's nice and it can be romantic, but it's expensive for one thing.
No, you're right. It is. Yeah.
But then it's not as intimate as it could be, as if you're at home with some really nice music and a candle, and you can sit there for hours and talk, like you can just really be comfortable and casual. And I'm discovering how romantic that can be versus being at, sort of like the stereotype is going out to dinner, but I'm really enjoying staying in and just the whole process of cooking.
I
And
totally agree. Yeah.
connecting while you're cooking.
But you say we can stay for hours and chat. I think you said something, or you said that.
Yeah.
And, it can be tricky for some people, because if you stay for hours and there is still some food on the table. You may be tempted at some point to reach out for more food, even if you're not hungry. It's like a habit of. It's for many people, it's not comfortable to have food in front of them. It's like we have to empty the plate, or we have to empty the dish. Dish.
Well, I
So
find that, clearing the table is important,
it is
to
exactly.
not
That's why I
think,
wanted to. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
good point. Clearing the table is
yeah.
important. Like once you're done, clear the table and then have some tea or, and he's European, it's coffee
Hmm.
usually,
Yeah.
and just enjoy conversation. So it's really sort of like, it sounds like what we're talking about are so many subtleties that we
It's a
don't
lot.
appreciate when we're lost in the fight, with the fight with the beast, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which is a fight with ourselves, in fact. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So I'd love to hear, we talked before we started recording about some of the things you use in your practice to help your clients. And one of the things that had my ears perk up is breathing. And so
Hmm.
can you talk more about why you feel like that's so important and how that's helpful?
Well, because I've noticed that most people who overeat eat too quickly. So the pace at which we eat is really important. Have, I mean, I've had hundreds of clients, of course, over so many years, and I've had very few slow eaters. Most
Yeah,
slow eaters know how to stop because first of all, because it takes sometimes before our body sends us a signal saying, "Thank you, I've had enough."
right.
So most of overeaters eat too quickly.
Yep, I've been guilty of that for sure.
Yeah. Um, I've also noticed, and I'm not the only one, of course, I've read a lot of stuff about that, that when we eat too quickly, we usually don't breathe properly. We have
Right.
a shorter breath and
Yep.
we don't breathe properly. So I really encourage my clients to be more aware of their breathing and starting with a deep breath or two before they start eating, and asking them, and then it's more than that. I will ask them to think, okay, how am I feeling right now? I'm feeling I've had a hard day at work. There's some frustration with my boss, but how hungry am I? That's my emotions, and I'm going to put them aside for a minute or two. But how hungry am I? I'm a bit hungry. So if I'm a bit hungry, it's about reconnecting with your body. And in order to reconnect with your body, you have to put your emotions aside for a
Mm-hmm.
while. Not 100% of your emotions. I mean, it's not like so completely separated, but somehow putting your emotions on the side for a bit of time. And breathing really helps you in connecting to your emotions. And then this is something you should repeat, ideally, whilst you're eating a few times. Let's say when you're done with half of your meal, or when I explain it, it sounds like a big thing. It's like you have to be ultra focused on this. No, it's not. It's a natural thing. It's just putting your cutlery down and make sure you breathe properly. Look at what's happening around you as well. Look at who am I eating with? How does he look? How does she look? It's so that we're not only focused on our plates
Yeah.
and the food. It's about establishing this kind of distance. I don't know what you're feeling about that. If it's
Well,
something you
I first of all, I love it when it's brought to my attention to breathe. Like anytime I see an
yeah
email and the word breathe is in there, I stop and I breathe because I'm
yeah
like it's so great to breathe. And I love it when somebody reminds me to breathe. Not that I'm
mm-hmm.
not usually breathing, because I typically am,
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, it's got to be important. But the consciousness of breathing and getting that nice, deep, comforting breath, I think is important. And what I love what you're saying is that, obviously to heal from emotional eating, we have to get conscious of what our emotions, like you can't heal them if you don't feel them, and you aren't aware of what they even are. And that's why the snacking is so problematic, because when we're numb all the time, we have no idea what we're eating, or why we're eating. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not an emotional eater. I'm like, well, you might not just be aware of it because you're eating so much and it's not really allowing your emotions to be, present. So I love the idea of breathing as a way of just being able to, I mean, it sounds to me, the way you're talking about it, by not being hyper focused on it, it's really just coming into the present.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, just being present and conscious and slowing down too. And slowing down is so, we all run at too fast a pace, and I find that overeaters are overdoers, so we tend to
Yeah.
right? We tend to pack our schedule with so much. We're running here and there and everywhere. And that's also a distraction from our emotions. So anything that can help us slow down and breathe and just sort of notice the subtle things that we're normally too busy to really take in, I think is so valuable.
No, I completely agree. I encourage my clients to put their cutlery down also sometimes.
Yes.
Not, just so that and I give them like tips of that kind of tip, like put your cutlery down sometimes, so that because if you're there with your fork and knife, it's like you're always ready for more. So
yeah,
just put your cutlery down. It's all. I have some clients who eat. Were eating that quickly that they were barely masticating. So they would swallow. They would put they were like barely would put two fries, large fries in their mouth and just swallow it.
Right.
It's about masticating a bit longer. It's about breathing. It's a nice process. In fact, it's not like a torture. It's not like a diet. There's nothing to do with a diet. It's about reconnecting with yourself, with your sensations, and it's not easy.
Yeah,
no. Because I don't want to be I don't know what you're feeling about it. It's not. It can take some time.
Well, no question. Yeah, and the slowing down I find so vital. And what's important for me along those lines is having like a morning practice of getting still and quiet. Because if I'm popping out of bed, I'm doing emails and, phone and texting, and I'm not present with myself, I'm sort of setting my day up to have that tone of hurriedness and really self-denial. And so I have a practice, and I teach my clients a morning routine of things like meditation or prayer or like spiritual readings, journaling, walking, not exercise, not jogging, not, working out, but literally just walking, and even walking and praying, so that we can get grounded in ourselves. We can sort of build up this reservoir of inner knowing, inner connection, so that throughout the day, when all the stress starts happening, we can better easily tap into ourselves, and we can more easily connect with what's really going on, but starting the day kind of as an anchor for that, I find to be super, super helpful. And it just helps the day be more orderly, and for me to be reminded, especially if I do spiritual readings, like that remind me that it's all in divine order. Like there's no, I don't need to rush, it's all going to work out. This kind of messaging can help me just stay reminded throughout the day that, hey, I don't have to make it all happen. It's all going to work out just fine. And then it's not everything's up to me anymore.
Yeah, I completely agree with most of the things that you say. But sometimes it can be difficult for some people to get to that stage, to that state where you can properly be focused on yourself and relax, because you've got some anxiety, because you've got some, you've got stuff, and that's more specifically, I guess, what I would work on what creates that this context in which you don't have access to yourself. In fact, it's funny you mentioned walking. I walk with my clients. I don't see them in a therapy room. I walk with them in some of London's parks, and we have
oh, that's beautiful.
So I do walking sessions.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's great. And most of my work is done in groups on Zoom. So I find that the self-care is easier to do when you're with other people, other emotional eaters, because we all, when we're emotional eaters, so much of it is done in secret, and we have a lot of shame around it. So when we're connecting with other people who have had the same problem, we're like, oh, I'm not the only one. But it's easier to meditate when you're hanging out with other people who are meditating, so that makes it easier. It's easier to realize that it's all going to work out when you hear other people's ahas about how, wow, I stopped controlling everything and it still worked out, so.
No,
that's cool though. Walking is great.
Yeah, I don't do group sessions on Zoom. I do individual sessions. And so you think so? Don't you think that it helps people when they know they're not alone in this process? And when you're having a group session, they by hearing the experience of others, they learn a lot about themselves. And I'm really interested in starting group sessions, in fact, because I think it's really beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 100%. It is so powerful, because I thought I did some really wacky things with food. Like I'd binge and I'd be so stuffed that I'd throw the rest of the food out, and I'd be like, I never want to see those cookies. I never want to see cookies again. Like I'm never eating cookies again. I'd throw it out. And then later, after I had more room in my tummy, I'd be like, I know there's cookies in there. Like, no, they're there. So I'd go pull them out of the garbage. And I swear, Philippe, I thought I was like the worst person in the world, And, I created a YouTube video about like reenacting that scenario. And I got over 60,000 hits.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And people are like, oh my God. Like, I thought I was the only one. So we all think we're the only one, and that just exacerbates the sense of isolation and shame. And so when you are with other people who have done the same crazy stuff, it's like it creates this camaraderie. And I really believe it's soul healing. Like I really feel like it heals that part of us that thinks we're so bad and so different. And because that isolation and that sense of separation fueled my overeating, and so many people's overeating. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the group dynamic, because, and it also just, the ahas that my clients have I have a whole system that people follow, a step-by-step system for overcoming emotional eating. And they're different they're on my groups, they're in different places on that path. But when they hear from each other, like what ahas they're having, it just inspires them. And sometimes it inspires them more than what my healing journey.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, like it's more accessible for them, for somebody who just overcame something than somebody who overcame something 20 years ago.
To what they just heard. Yeah,
totally. So yeah, I'm a big fan. You should do it.
No, I know. I've done a lot of group therapy for myself, and I think it's so powerful. But I want to work on this, but I'm not going to walk with a group of people in the park, though, because that's going to be
no. That gets a little chaotic. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this has been such a nice chat. I'm sure people my audience has appreciated it, and your wonderful, beautiful, luscious accent. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I hope you can still understand me, because I know I've been trying to work on my accent, but
oh, no, don't do that. It's wonderful.
Okay.
So how can people from who are listening to my podcast, how do they get a hold of you, and what's your podcast called?
My podcast is called Shrink, and the Diet for the Mind. It's in the same title as the book I wrote, which was published 2 years ago. And or they can reach me through my website, which is Philippe Tahon, TAHON.com. And
we'll put that in the show notes.
Okay, all right, yeah. Okay, no, with pleasure. So how about you? How can they get in touch with you if they want to, if they need to, or if they want to?
So my show is called the Heal Your Hunger Show, after my book, which is Heal Your Hunger: 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. And my website is healyourhunger.com, and it's heal, HEAL, healyourhunger.com. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's been really fun talking with you.
Yeah, it's really nice talking with you too.
Yeah, it's a nice different format, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy it.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I really hope so.
Yeah.
Have a good day. I mean, for me, it's a night now, so it's
Thank you. I've got a little bit left of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.